right. So, I mean, when I joined the sector some 30 odd years ago, uh, everything around the sector was in the spirit of volunteerism. It was considered obscene to think in terms of good salaries. Well, you know, you were supposed to be that Gandhian, self-sacrificing, do-gooder. But today what I see is a high degree of professionalism that has fortunately entered the sector. We still don't pay very competitive salaries to people in this sector. But it's important that I see high degree of awareness both from the NGOs as employers and people who are seeking their role into NGOs. Today, legislation mandates a lot of things to you. If you have more than 20 employees, PF is mandatory for you. There used to be a circular which said that NGOs are specifically exempt if they provide free services, etc. That part has been specifically taken away in September last year. You got more than 20 employees, EPF mandatory for you. A lot of other things. You work in health sector, you work in education sector, ESI, etc. A whole bunch of other things, minimum wages, etc., etc. These are new demands on the sector, which earlier on we just thought we are a bunch of do-gooders, we hardly pay anybody, why bother about all these social security issues, etc. But HR has taken on a different role. I remember a joke that someone had told me when I joined the sector, that how do you recruit people in an NGO? And they say generally we go through a process of interviewing, and then when we have shortlisted about 5 or 6, we put them in a big room like this which has no furniture, nothing, but about 500, 600 bricks over there. And we put all these potential recruits over there. And then we observe how they behave. If you find some people counting the bricks, put them in accounts. If you find somebody recounting them, put them in audit. If you find somebody making designs, put them in creative communications. If you see someone passing bricks, fundraising. And if you see someone doing absolutely nothing, put them in HR.
Thank you. Okay, so thankfully CAP has not had to put bricks in a room. In the past year, we've seen a much larger need for HR as well, and that's why we've incorporated that into our offering as well going forward. We did trainings in HR, consultancies in HR regarding HR audits. Yes, there are organizations that have started doing HR audits. Recruitment is always a problem for NGOs, so we've helped a lot with that. A lot of NGOs today are giving importance to appraisals, and a lot of NGOs are giving importance to 360-degree appraisals as well. So that's also on the increase. On the legal side, there's been a lot of awareness, a lot of increase in the compliance within HR with regard to ESIC, stipends, provident fund, minimum wages, all that. So I think HR, again, is a way that we are going to be helping NGOs in the year forward. Yeah? I'll hand over to Aparna and Madhukar and their lovely team over here. And they put in a lot of effort for this session. And I'm sure you all are going to enjoy it. I think all of you all need to now shut your books, shut your laptops, take a stretch, because there's a lot of work in this session. Aparna, over to you.
And that will build your appetite for lunch.
Come, all of you. You need to call a 9. Yeah,
Okay, so I happen to be the person who wasn't doing anything in the room full of bricks. That's the introduction I've got. But good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to anchor this simulation on behalf of CAP. I once again welcome each of you to their 30th anniversary celebrations. This HR module is one of its kind 40-minute simulation, and in these 40 minutes you will enact a range of scenarios and role plays. It's called Fast Forward. If you're wondering why, we will be actually going through 1 year in 40 minutes. And so that gives us on an average 10 minutes per quarter, so there will be 4 quarters that we will be enacting. Unbelievable, right? So you'll know soon. This, what is going to be very important is that you listen to my announcements, because this whole simulation is based on, you know, the announcements that are made, what you need to do next, and there will be a whole lot of announcement, I can assure you that. You have to start only after I've completed speaking. But before I make an announcement, I'm going to be ringing a bell. There is a bell at, that Madhukar has, and you know, we will be ringing that. Before I start, I want to introduce you to some people here. Can I have the panelists on the board, on the stage, please? Yeah, just spread out a little bit. Okay, so these are going to be very important people throughout the simulation. I'm going to start with Ram, that's Deepam, Kenneth, Geetanjali, and my colleague Madhukar. Okay, Madhukar will be, you know, moving around, helping everybody else. Each of them will be assigned to a team. You'll know how, you know, the team formation is going to happen. Okay, we will be making groups now, so I'm going to request the panelists to circulate some chits. You open the chits, there is something written on the chits, read it and keep that to yourself, and I'll come back to you soon. You will see certain people holding boards. Depending on what's written on your chit, can you please assemble in those areas? There are, whatever's written on your chit, there are people holding boards. So for example, if you're a beneficiary, you need to go there, etc., etc. We have the following groups now. We have CEOs, we have employees, where there are accountants, managers, and field staff, and we have board chairpersons, and we have beneficiaries. Now, before we begin the first quarter, I'm just going to put a context here, okay? So listen to me really well. All those who are CEOs, where are the CEOs standing? Oh, here, this side. All the CEOs, you have to choose any one dedicated area for yourself, anywhere in the room. So eventually, different groups will join you, but just choose any particular area in this room. So wherein you all can form your teams. Please go ahead and do that. Okay. Now, each non-profit here is represented by a CEO, and it's a Section 8 company. Okay. Each non-profit has submitted a proposal for a skill development project. Good news is that the CEO has received a communication that the proposal has been approved. A CEO's role, like any other CEO, is to drive strategy, ensure compliance, employee engagement, and ensure smooth management of the organization. Each CEO, please give your organization a name. So the CEOs, you all will have to think of a name for your respective organization. Each of the panelists have to join a CEO. So can I please request the panelists to please join The CEOs. Who's with the CEO is available to the CEO as an advisor at a quarterly fee of 10,000 rupees. Okay? Only the CEO can ask questions. The panelists will hand over there are two documents actually, there's a transaction sheet and there is a team sheet that will be handed over to the CEO by the panelist. Okay? So this is a simulation, it's a virtual organization, there are different roles. The CEOs have a chit and the CEOs need to read that chit to know what they need to do next, which is, I'll just come to that. So we are going to enact 4 quarters. Our first quarter is starting right now. CEOs, please listen to me. This announcement is for you. You need to recruit a board member from this room. So figure out where the board members are standing. Each NGO will have one board chairperson. So you need to hire that person from within this room. Once you have appointed a board member, you can interact only in the board meeting, which will cost 5,000 rupees. These are entries that will come in your transaction sheet, and once you see it in your hand, you will know. Recruitment fee per employee is 1,000 rupees, and your beneficiary acquisition cost is 1,000 rupees. So you need to go around the room, find the people that you need to hire. Your time starts now. Thank you. Okay, so if people have identified CEOs, you can approach them for jobs as well. I mean, there are managers, there are accountants. If you know who the CEOs in the room are, you can go to them and say, I'm an accountant, I need a job. Please come on, we need more action here.
CEOs, I will actually give you some hint. You could appoint or recruit a manager first and let the manager take care of the field staff recruitment.
The bell. Sorry. Okay, CAP has just released the results of a salary survey that is conducted. The lowest salary for field staff is 10,000, accountant is 20,000 and manager is 30,000. So please negotiate your salaries. Thank you. Okay, I have Vinay Kripal here. There was a manager who approached her, said that my CEO wants to meet you. I want you to join my organization. The manager hasn't left the name. She doesn't know what to do. Anybody wants a manager?
No, not a manager. They wanted me. I don't know what they wanted me to go in.
There. See?
So why is he hiding in a corner?
Each team represented by a CEO, okay, is a non-profit Section 8 company. Each non-profit now has a manager, has 2 field staff, has beneficiaries depending on the number of beneficiaries they've been able to hire, and they are basically running a skill development project. So that was the context. This was the recruitment round. I think we've managed to form the groups. Have we? Is everybody in a group now? Okay, great. So I'm going to start the first quarter. Listen to me. Okay, especially the CEOs, but you're free to, appoint people within your teams to do these jobs, but primarily your responsibility. Okay, so Q1 actually is all about recruiting, settling with your new teams, identifying your colleagues. I hope everybody's had enough time to do that. We are going to be starting the second quarter of the simulation. Please listen before you start action. Deepam, your group is not listening to me. Okay. All right. So it's Q2 already. What you need to do is complete your finding. Employees who had grievances, I hope you've approached your CEOs with the grievances, and all the forms that are filled in, please hand it over to your respective CEOs. Can I have everybody's attention? Can all the CEOs please come forward? All the survey forms should have come back to your CEOs, everybody. Please submit your survey forms to the CEOs.
Hello, can I have your attention please? Hello. Can I have your attention, please? Can you be back with your teams? Can you be back at your places, please?
Okay, everybody please hear. Okay, can each of you please share in terms of what your scores are? Your panel, your sheet. Do you want to share your scores? It's okay, you can just...
I have not filled anything.
You haven't filled in your transaction sheet yet. Okay, how about...
Transaction sheet is with the accountant. She's helping.
Your transaction sheet is with your accountant. How about yourself? Same with you. Okay, how about yourself? Your transaction sheet, is it updated? It is. Okay, it's okay, it's okay. I'm going to start my Q3. Do I have everybody's attention? Kenneth. One sec. Announcement, everybody. Okay, there is a good news. This is going to be starting of Q3. There is good news. Please listen to me, okay, very carefully. The funds have been released by the funder. It's Q3, funds have been released by the funder. You can add 10 lakhs to your transaction sheets. Okay? Alright, the CEOs are here at the podium. There is a bad news. Okay? The CEOs have met with an accident. They are not available to the teams anymore. Okay? The teams, you have to appoint an interim CEO. Okay? Interim CEO. 2 minutes. Your time starts now. You are not available. Okay, so this is the last quarter. You have to maximize in terms of the number of forms that your team has filled in. Okay, if your transaction sheet is not updated, update the transaction sheet. Employees, if you had any grievances, you should resolve them in Q3. Okay, so Q3 has ended, it's Q4. CEOs, you all are free to go back to your teams. This is the last quarter, so whatever summarizing that you need to do in terms of putting all your papers together, conducting appraisals for employees, you also have to decide how many beneficiaries really benefited from your projects. There is a penalty of 100 points if you're short on employees. So employees, if your grievances are not resolved, you're expected to resign. Okay? And once you're done, CEOs, just share your transaction sheets with the panelists and join me back on the stage. All the people who are role-playing the CEOs, can you please join me on stage?
The participants to go back to their seats. Okay, can we have all the CEOs on stage, please? Role-playing CEOs. Sorry, that was an error on my part. Role-playing CEOs on the stage.
Okay, so each of you, if you could just quickly introduce yourself. I know that there was a bit of a commotion. I think there always is in some form or the other in all kinds of organizations. But if you could summarize and just share your experience on, what happened in the last 45 minutes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, introduce yourself, your organization, and please share your experience.
Sure. I'm Manju Vyas, and I'm from an organization called Apneya Women's Collective. And our organization works with brothel-based prostitutes, women, and their daughters in Falkland Road and Kamatipura, red light area of Mumbai. Specifically, this whole exercise was very, first of all, entertaining and quite good change for me to see the things from other perspective, because doing monotonous work in our office and just seeing the things, doing it as instructed was quite enjoyable to me. But beside that, yes, listening to the instructions and following it up and getting it implemented to the newly appointed staff was fun, and like, you know, knowing who is my manager and who is my accountant was like, yeah. Sometimes I'm instructing my accounts related instructions to my manager, and I realized my manager was too slow and too sloppy and sleepy, and most of the time I realized that he was not seen, he was just hiding somewhere behind the wall and sort of a thing.
Oh God.
Yes. Otherwise, also, I realized there's one more important thing. Manager was not good, efficient enough, but I have felt one of my, what was that? The second? No, no, not beneficiary. Field staff. One of my field staff was more than efficient, and he was too good, and I felt realized once in the Q4 when I resumed back, he had resigned. So I thought I'd sack my manager and reappoint my that field worker as a manager. So that's my.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it was fun, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Trupti from Ambuja Cement Foundation. The whole process was very interesting, and I came to know that it is very important to appoint a correct person for a correct designation. And maximum time it was like CEO is only working, and the other people are just listening to what CEO is doing. But yeah, it was a great fun and very different experience.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Elijah Jacob. I'm the executive director for an American NGO called the American Joint Distribution Committee in India. And I must say this was an eye-opening experience in actually recruiting new people and getting them to work on the field in such a short time. But I think my manager and the accountant were quite efficient.
Wow.
And we were able to also get about 22 extra beneficiaries to join us, which I
Wow.
think was a great team effort. And I want to thank them for this wonderful success that we achieved by getting together, starting by doing the assessment of needs of the beneficiaries and then moving on to trying and hiring as many as we could. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
My name is Deepak. I work for a Kaim Foundation. I work in administration. The CEO is very new to me, actually. My panelist was very active, okay? And all the time, whenever I used to hear about I need a raise in my salary, I need this amount, I was, when you said about the CEO is met with an accident, that was a real relief for me, actually. So fun. So I said for some time, actually good that I am not going to hear anything. So it was a really experience for me to how to actually, as she said, we need really a experienced person, and I need to learn that. Actually, the CEO things I was not knowing. I was the first time experience for me, and thank you for this. I had around 16 beneficiaries.
Lovely. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to request my panelists to please join me on stage. You could please take your seats. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry, CEOs here. This is a very fun exercise, huh? So please don't take it seriously. Yeah. Don't be shy. How many of you are actually CEOs of organizations? You are like really worried. Are you like that in real life as well? Okay. Who was in his team? Okay. We are going to just do a friendly poll, okay, to see who's won this. Who was the one who said that they were really, who was sitting over here? Sorry, I missed that. Who said, Manju was sitting here, right? Eliza, you were able to recruit properly? Okay. What problems did you have?
I couldn't recruit properly.
And what did you do well? What do you think you did well?
With the beneficiaries better. And
You did well with
yeah.
beneficiaries. What about you?
I think we, first of all, getting to know the needs of the beneficiaries, we were able to address it more effectively.
Okay. Manju, what do you think you did?
I had a tough time in finding a manager. And though I was able to finally, but was more than happy to be like, hiding away behind the walls or behind the chairs. Yeah.
What do you think you did well?
I got one of very good field staff, and I felt I should have hired him as a manager.
Not bad.
Again, difficult in recruiting the person.
And what do you think you did well?
And the survey part was well, so beneficiaries were very supportive to me.
This looks like a tie, Aparna. So what we're going to do is actually we thought of having one team as the winner, but what we'll do is we will give the CEOs the prizes, and you all can decide amongst yourself how you want to divide that booty, okay? Let's see how efficient you all are at that. That was a joke. Okay, I'd like all our panelists to come on. Thank you very much. Come.
In the interest of time, I'm not going to get too much, into the introductions part of it. I think their bios are mentioned in the booklet that's at everybody's table. We had 4 quarters and we did different activities, right from recruitment to performance management to succession planning. I would like each of you to share your experiences. How do you think it went? Just a quick heads up for everybody. Most of the panelists, I think other than Deepam, are not from the sector. So their perception might be very different. So it'll be interesting to hear from you from the corporate side, how you felt things were different. Yeah, so. Yeah, this is on.
Okay.
That mic is on.
Okay, so very, very quickly in the interest of time, so one thing which resonated with me was recruiting was difficult. I've been a recruiter for many years in my life, and trust me, it's difficult. It's always been difficult for me. It will continue to be difficult. So that's a pain that everybody in HR has, will continue to have. So you guys are no different, so don't be harsh on yourself. And the second thing which I was able to relate was one of the CEOs said, should have had a field staff as a manager. And my manager, with due respect to whoever played the role of the manager, my manager was not, doing the best. So those are challenges that in the corporate sector we always have. After recruiting somebody, we realize that, somebody probably a little more junior in the team has more potential and, probably should have been hired at a different level. So that's again not very, very uncommon. So these are 2 things that I quickly wanted to say. And just one thing which, I've learned very early in my career, and probably Aparna will be able to relate to this, in one of our branches in Pune, there used to be a board which used to say, when in doubt, don't. So which is what I always follow. If you're in doubt, do not do something. And I think that relates to compliance because, I think you guys are here for a compliance related training, and hence, even in HR, we don't do things if we are in doubt. Thank you.
It was a very, very interesting experience. Ever since I've come here, I've kept hearing people from different backgrounds, including the corporate, and how would it really be different? So even I could say that I'm very, very glad that I'm here and to interact and see what you guys go through, because it's not very different from what we go through in the corporate jungle, if I could call it a jungle. So the team that I worked with was very, very interesting. Some of the beneficiaries decided to just sit down, take a cup of coffee, and said, relax, everybody else is doing the job. And there were a few people who really did all the running around, so kudos to them. The CEO was a very, very interesting person. I said, yes, I've recruited the right people, they will do the job for me. So that's exactly what happens in the corporate world also. We depend on one right leader giving the direction and then rest of the things really falling. One of the interesting observations that I really had in this entire exercise is the onboarding. So when I say onboarding, it's, when let's say you've just got a new project and you are getting all the people on board. It is like an onboarding. Maybe you are a part of the organization, but when you all get called upon for a new project, it's like coming into a new mini organization. And how is everybody talked about or told what their roles and responsibilities are? What is the outcome, or what is it that the group is supposed to achieve or do? So that, I think, is an opportunity area for all of us, and I think that's the clear takeaway I would say is for me too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kenneth, and I'm also from the corporate world. And I would like to agree with my fellow panelist. It's not really, really different at all. So there is, believe me, exactly the same amount of chaos, confusion, and that is where HR becomes very, very important, okay? So one aspect that I would like to highlight out of my observation made is that in our group, so every group had an employee who had a grievance. So in our group, the grievance was very, very loud. The employee was every time shouting, I would resign. My problem is not getting solved. My issue is not getting solved. So the first question he asked me, who's supposed to resolve my grievance? I said, the manager. So he said, who's the manager? everything that you're supposed to do, I'm doing for you. So how are you going to resolve my grievance? So that becomes very, very important. So HR plays a very critical role, which takes a step back and really is able to identify with the grievance of the individual. Yeah. So to be able to understand the pain areas, I mean, the solution was very, very simple. You could have given him an increment. You could have asked whether the dissatisfaction is because of his role. He does not have clarity. There is lack of communication. But none of it was done. And that's what really impacts in making or breaking an organization to a large extent, right? The other thing which was very, very interesting is, again, similar to the corporate world, is communication, and a very big part of communication is active listening. So there are instructions which, as an advisor, you paid 10,000 every quarter. The advisor kept repeating the advice, what this needs to be done, you've missed out on this, you're not doing this, and it still wasn't done. So the idea is, in terms of not just being able to understand what the larger objective is, what is the larger goal, it's just about being able to actively listen and understand, take a step back and understand, okay, what needs to be done? Okay, this is what I need to do. And these are the aspects wherein HR from an individual perspective plays a very important role. Yeah, so thank you, and everybody did a fantastic job. One more thing I would just like to add, the beneficiaries. I don't know if the other panelists faced it in their group, but my beneficiaries were like, no, what is my role? I mean, what exactly am I supposed to do? How am I contributing? What am I doing? So these are a lot of questions that an HR constantly and regularly gets from across the departments, across employees, and that's where everyone has to be tied up and being brought to the same page to understand what is the contribution and the common goal. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I want to start with some observations that I made with my group. No reference to you in person otherwise. One was there was a skill mismatch. I think one of the other groups also felt that the field staff is better than the manager. So ऐसा बहुत experience हुआ that what was required was actually seen in someone else, but we of course hired the wrong people, but no action was taken to do anything about it. The other was loss of information. Again, I think quite a few of them have covered it. There's so much loss of information. There is no clarity. Nobody knows what they're supposed to do. Nobody took the leadership to actually tell what to do. Someone was trying to tell, in my team, acha, aisa karte, but no one really heard that person at all. Everyone was, of course, it's fast forward, and we did all this too fast, but there was too much loss of information. The other was, the board member was lost. He was loitering around saying, mujhse kuch pucho. And finally, when the CEO went, everybody was like, call that board member, let's ask him for advice. And it was like, suddenly really, like, what did you do for the last 2 quarters? Even when the board member came in, sorry to say this, but nobody listened to him. Someone else in the group took a decision of what needs to be done. So, of course, that was that chaos. The other was maybe a typical thing, manager ignoring problems. So that again happens a lot maybe in the corporate world also, but the loopholes are lesser. The manager is also accountable to someone, and the manager would have to take some action. So I feel there's a lot of action that's not being taken in the development sector. If you look at it from HR perspective, whether it's recruitment, whether it's even appraisals, whether it's knowing what to do, not to do.
Actually, I hope you all got a perspective of different angles through this. So the piece we all put together basically to give you a perspective from like different perspectives to the HR issue. And actually, I'm from an IT background. So, okay, can I ask 2 questions? Is there anyone else from IT background? Okay, great. And generally to all the CEOs or NGO heads or directors, do you think attrition is a big problem in your organization?
How many of you think attrition
Do you think attrition is a big problem in your organization?
Yeah, some hands.
Okay, very few hands, great. So if I draw a parallel from IT, sorry to all my co-panelists here, IT industry does not really have an HR. So there is one central HR for the sake of it, but for all practical purposes, HR is your line manager. Your line manager is your HR. He or she is driving everything together, holding everything together. So when NGOs don't have a very person for an HR as a HR manager, I am sort of fine with that, but only if the line managers are holding the pieces together. They are the ones who are actually practically running the HR for your organization. Do we really think that way? And do we really leverage that aspect? I worked with generally I am from, let's say, not from social sector, but I worked for 4 years, full-time employee in the social sector. So I have seen, in that sense, both sides of the coin. So though there are similarities, so I was completely fine with not having an HR person per se in my organization. But at the same time, the line managers need to sort of take it forward. And I hope you got a flavor of multiple things in this short simulation. And hopefully you found it interesting and you'll be able to take it forward in your organizations. Thanks.
Can I add to that, please? That as a beneficiary, I felt that I was nowhere. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And every time they said, say yes, I said yes.
So thanks for bringing those points out, because isn't that a reflection of the reality?
Absolutely no. But the point is it because I was the most underpaid, or, you know, the person who would get just about 10K per annum, though that's why nobody even cared for me as a person?
Perhaps it's a question that all the organizations need to ask themselves, that we are continuously paying people below perhaps what we feel they should be valued for. And there is so much of lack of communication. There's so much of lack of clarity. In a corporate sector, a CEO might be appointed to a job description. आप CEO हो, आपका role ये है, आपसे ये expected है. A CEO in a development sector, I don't know, how many of you joined with JDs? How many of you have got a job description? How many of you, anybody? Some few, right? So it has been evolving. So we were trying to replicate the real life situation to give everyone a perspective of what is the development sector going through every day, and it needs to transition, not only from financial perspectives, but also from HR and how we're managing those processes.
There's somebody who has a question.
There was no second line development.
Absolutely, I would agree. So, in fact, succession planning is something that this development sector completely ignores. So, in a corporate, for example, कल अगर toothpaste नहीं बनेगा तो कोई और toothpaste बनाएगा. Succession planning is okay. In a development sector, if you're running an education NGO and if you're not there tomorrow and no one's going to take forward your education program, we are at a major loss. So, where is your succession planning? Typically, development sector में बोलते हैं there's a founder syndrome. So, there is a founder. Till the founder is there, the organization exists, and when the founder is not there, it sort of collapses. So our causes, our initiatives, our skill development, or whatever it is not being taken forward because there's just no succession planning.
So I just want to add, before taking on the next question, that some of these things were incorporated as a part of the simulation. So no offense to anybody if you were feeling lost or if you felt that, okay, I wasn't given attention, we didn't know what to do. So some of these elements were a part of the simulation. I also would want to give you a round of applause, for being patient, living through the simulation for about 45 minutes, experiencing what you did. We did try to put in some method, and I hope you have some takeaways from that. Yeah.